All right, so after this weekend, we have to talk about Tier 0 format. It's just what's happening and we have to deal with it. Let's talk about this 3v3 YCS slash UUDS weekend. Everything happened at the exact same time and it was pretty much dominated by fire decks. So we're gonna go through some of the top cut breakdown, deck lists, and just talk about Tier 0 format in general. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And of course, it helps you to comment because my SP giveaway is still going. And if you comment, also sub and like the video and follow me on Twitter, you can enter into my SP giveaway, which is going until the 22nd of February. So yes, with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So obviously this weekend, what took place was the Ultimate UDS Championship, pretty much, where Jessie Cotton was crowned the ultimate champion, which is amazing, just such a great accomplishment. All of the UDS previous champions were gathered playing this exclusive event. Pretty much every round we either saw a mirror match or a pure Snake Eyes versus Fire King Snake Eyes deck. And the finals were no different. Jessie was up against pure Snake Eyes with his Fire King Snake Eyes strategy, managed to win. And if we take a look at the 3v3 YCS, which also took place, it was won by a group playing 3 Snake Eyes decks. All of them played pure Snake Eyes, so it just goes to show that, yes, we are in a Tier 0 format. And it's kind of weird, like some people will say it's not exactly the case because what you would have to kind of check the box off would be if representation in top cut is 65% or more. And with this top cut, we can actually check it out because we have a great breakdown from LampyYGO, if I am not mistaken. So basically, 47.9% was Fire King Snake Eye, however, 33.3% was pure Snake Eye. And honestly, if we just add those two together, it is very obvious that the Snake Eye archetype, pretty much in any version, is dominant. So even though it's 2 different decks, quote unquote, it's still Tier 0 format. And right now, the question is, what do you want to do? Do you want to play a fire deck, or are you trying to find an alternative? Because we're also going to take a look at that. And I guess we can start with that because not everyone is that excited to play fire decks, mainly because a lot of people are sadly priced out of the format pretty much. But we're also going to take a look at a deck list. I want to show you the top 4 branded deck list, of course, by Andres Torres, because, he is like synonymous, is the word I was looking for, with branded. So from the UDS Championship, he played branded. It was a 50 card list and he made it all the way to top 4, but unfortunately lost to the eventual runner-up, which would be Juan Andrade. So yeah, 50 card list, very standard for branded. Actually, I just love branded lists that have a higher count. I've talked about this a bunch. If you want to compete with fire, I think you have to play a deck that just has consistent engine, and branded does struggle with consistency sometimes. However, if you play a higher count and don't see the bricks that you don't want to see as much, and you actually get to your engine with the help of thrust and you have going second cards to break boards, I just think this approach is really good. And, obviously he did well, made it all the way to top 4. It goes to show that a non-fire deck is able to compete in this meta. But what you have to do is you have to be prepared. Either choose a fire deck and learn how to play the mirror match, because that's pretty much all you're going to be doing, and really build your deck accordingly. If you go to an event where you don't expect as many fire decks because you just, your personal meta, of course, then you're going to have to prepare for the rest of the field, which there are decks that we're going to be discussing that are able to at least try and hang with the fire decks. And the results really speak for themselves, because we've seen quite a lot of topping lists that are non-fire. You can either do that, or you can choose a deck purposely to, beat fire. And that's a little tougher. And you're also going to have to be a very good deck builder, in my opinion, because you're really going to have to focus on that matchup. On the other hand, if you don't expect as many fire decks, you're going to have to be prepared for both fire and then also rogue and just random stuff that you might encounter. So I think it's going to be kind of a tough meta to be in. It's really going to depend on what you're playing, but I also think that it's going to be kind of fun to play, honestly. What I want to focus on is the actual gameplay, because a lot of times tier 0 formats are hated since only one deck is like dominant. Some people just really dislike that. And it was very apparent in tier limits format. Both of those formats actually have a lot of interaction between both players. The one going first is probably going to have an advantage, but it's not always going to be the case, and it's definitely going to depend on decision making, deck building, and overall just I don't think you can afford to make a single mistake if you're playing against a skilled fire player, because overall the sheer power of the deck is so immense that you're going to have to try really, really hard to even beat the mirror match. So yeah, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about decks that can beat fire. Let's go back to that, because here we have the top 16 breakdown again. I want to talk about Voiceless Voice Kashtira, and we already talked about Branded. Branded is really nice. And when it comes to Kashtira, this is another deck that I feel like is going to be really successful moving forward. Like, obviously, we saw this already. There's literally a bunch of topping deck lists. It's always getting posted. Like, every single day almost, I see like a new person topping with Kashtira. It's just really solid at what it does. It has just really powerful cards. You know, if you end on like literally the trap card, Fenrir, you know, decode the drawing into like a hand trap or two or something, like you're fine. You know, you're actually chilling. And not to mention their shifter. Obviously, this is like one of the main reasons why this deck is still seeing so much success. But, you know, it's much more affordable than fire. So if you feel like playing Kashtira, I don't blame you. I actually think it's kind of a fun deck to learn. Like maybe for someone that wasn't playing in Kashtira format and got bored of the deck, but yeah. There's also Voiceless Voice. So I think this is really popular right now. We had an event on Saturday and I saw so many Voiceless Voice players. Like people are just really excited about this deck. It's a new strategy. It's not fire and it's ritual, you know. Some people just really, really enjoy this. And it just also like works, you know. Usually the case with ritual decks is they just don't really make sense. They break, they don't really work. But with Voiceless, it's actually really, really nice. It is expensive. However, if you're looking to play something other than fire, Voiceless is really good because pretty much it makes your opponent exhaust all of their resources so they can beat you and deal with your board, because you make everything not able to be targeted, and you have Sauravis, you have summon limit and stuff like that really hinders most of the field actually. And yeah, just all in all, this deck seems really, really solid. And there's also decks like Flunder, for example. I saw Flunder at the UDS. The feature match we watched, you know, the Flunder player did lose in Swiss. However, you know, Flunder is really similarly to Kashtira, just a really solid deck and play shifter. So there's that. And yeah, as for the actual fire decks, inevitably we're gonna have to discuss this. I think, like I said before, what you have to do is you have to prepare to beat the mirror match. This is like the main thing you're thinking about right now if you're trying to do well in this format. So let's take a look at the winning deck list from Jesse. He obviously, like, non-engine is the most important part. It's what we're going to be taking a look at, because when it comes to engine, it's very, very basic. Almost every single Fire King Snake Eye deck is looking along the lines of this, pretty much. So let's talk about non-engine. He decided to main deck hand traps, so he went for this approach. And yeah, there's Nibiru, Ash, Droll, Veiler, and also Impermanence. There's 1 talents and 3 crossout, which crossout was actually one of the most played cards at the UDS. I saw it a lot. Like, specifically at this event, you expected a lot of fire. So these deck lists are not like the end-all be-all of fire decks. in my opinion, because the players were prepared for some of the highest level of competition. They were prepared for Fire Deck specifically, but I do think it's a really good example of, you know, a deck list that is prepared to face a lot of mirror matches. So if you're looking for some inspiration, I think this is really, really good. So a lot of hand traps and also therefore a lot of cross-out targets. And as for engine, like we said, it's very standard. There's one Diabellstar, which you can play however many copies of you want. There's also two Princes, which I think is kind of important actually. Like I see it come up, and also if they deal with it somehow, you kind of want to have an additional copy. So I really like two Princes, but the extra deck is extremely tight. Relinquished Anima is nice because usually, like, for example, I personally cut it because people just don't play into that zone. It's kind of unrealistic. I only used it for, like, you know, to spell trap zone a Nibiru token or something where I could actually place it somewhere. However, what Jesse did was he decided where he wanted to special summon the monster back with Zealantis' effect. So he went for Zealantis, summoned back the Kirin to the extra deck monster zone, like below it, and then he made Anima and removed the Kirin without actually destroying it, which was a really, really smart play. So since you can actually manipulate your plays, I really like this. I felt like I wanted to point this out. And as for the side deck, we see Delta and Gamma and of course Driver. You need all of this, you know, if you want to deal with the mirror match, if you want to deal with all the spell cards, and obviously it's going to come in handy against other matchups as well. Solemn Strike is a great card because it deals with Snake Eye Ash and removes it from the field, so you don't have to worry about the second effect anymore. There's a couple of Snake Eye spells over here as well, which are really good. The field spell was actually sided, so this is a really interesting side deck, and then some time cards. And then I also want to take a look at the pure Snake Eyes deck, which again, very, very similar, but Juan Andrade went for a board breaker approach, which I really liked. Forbidden Chalice. It actually is one of those cards that just deals with interruption so well when you're in a format where you're just trading stuff 1-for-1. I think this is really, really solid. And he also played one Magician Souls, which this was a cool tech, obviously sending Witch. And yeah, I don't know, I kind of liked it. Like, there was obviously the downside of, you know, top 4 lists were known to the opponents beforehand, so you could definitely prepare and, you know, not play around some cards that you know your opponent is not running. So this kind of sucks, but yeah, you can share your thoughts about that in the comments down below. He did play a lot of hand traps as well, so it's pretty much board breakers plus hand traps, like a healthy mixture of everything. I really, really like this deck list. And as for the side deck, specifically, he was prepared for Branded, but again, this was a different field. So this is pretty much how the fire decks are going to be looking like. Again, it's going to be so important how you deck build in this format. But for this first weekend, I just really wanted to kind of break down what happened, what the representation was. We kind of expected it, if we're being completely honest, because if you compare it to the OCG, over there, pure Snake Eye just did not see any play almost at the beginning. Fire King was very dominant, but right now we kind of saw a lot of stuff happening over there. We got inspired. We were working on some stuff beforehand, so it's definitely going to be different in the TCG, and specifically the 3v3. We really showcased this, you know, with just such an overwhelming representation of both versions of the fire deck. So yeah, you know, to me, it was an awesome weekend. I really enjoyed watching the stream and also reading all of the written feature matches on their blog, which, you know, I think you learn a lot from those as well. So yes, I'm looking forward to this format, but I would really like to hear your thoughts in the comments down below as well. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, of course. Comment, sub, like, ding the bell so you don't miss a single time that I post. And I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.